So I'm pleased to introduce our next session, led by Antonia Spitman, Associate VP of Online Programs in the Division of Continuing Studies at Rutgers, Laura DiMarcantonio, Assistant Dean for Admissions and Recruitment at the Rutgers School of Social Work, and Jessica Sheehan, Senior Director of Strategic Marketing at Blackboard. They will be presenting Breaking Up with OPMs for Successful Independent Revenue Growth Models. Once again, please note that there will be a short survey displayed at the end of the session, and we appreciate any feedback that you can provide.
Hi, welcome to our session where we'll talk about breaking up with your OPM and moving to a more sustainable revenue model. We'll start with some introductions. So I'm Jessica Sheehan. I lead the Marketing Services Division at Blackboard. I've been at Blackboard for over 10 years and have spent the last 6 years in the division I'm working with now, where we work with universities of all shapes and sizes who are looking to grow enrollment with non-traditional and online students. I'll pass it over to Antonius and Laura to do introductions as well.
Hi, my name is Antonia Spitman. I'm the Associate Vice President of Online Programs at Rutgers. In that role, I oversee teaching and learning with technology as well as IT at Continuing Studies. Laura?
Hi, I'm Laura DiMarcantonio. I'm the Assistant Dean of Admissions and Recruitment here at Rutgers University School of Social Work. I've been at Rutgers for about 5.5 years, and I oversee the MSW programs and BASW programs in terms of all things recruitment, admissions, and enrollment.
Thanks. So today we're going to be looking at a case study in evolving out of a revenue share partner with OPM in an OPM relationship. At a high level, there are really 6 steps to breaking up with your OPM. First, and one of the most important that Rutgers did really well, was understanding the timing of the contract. In that time, really understanding opportunities for where you can build services in-house and identify what needs to be managed by an outsourced partner. Identifying assets that are potentially currently owned by an OPM and what may need rebranding or what may need to be rebuilt. And getting access and understanding your data. A really, really important part is understanding that flow of data from inquiry all the way through to enrollment. And then lastly, one that sometimes can get forgotten, but reclaiming your organic website, which we'll talk about all today. But we'll take you through what that looks like in real life, starting off with a look at the evolution of Rutgers Online.
So our journey into the online education world began in 1996 when the School of Communication and Information launched the university's very first fully online course. And ever since, online education at Rutgers grew organically, meaning wherever faculty were interested or are interested in teaching online, have the support of their colleagues, chairs, and deans. That's where online education took hold. Though there were some financial incentives in the mid-2000s to teach online, there have been, by and large, no central university mandates to teach online, with perhaps one exception, and that is Rutgers Online. So Rutgers Online today is a collection of about 10 fully online degree programs that are supported by a partner, a commercial partner, a company. It began in 2012, but there were some years leading up to it. So 2010, 2011, then President Richard McCormick and his leadership team got very interested in growing Rutgers enrollments institution-wide, and they advanced to that end. They advanced online education as a means to move the university forward strategically. They were particularly interested at the time in launching fully online degree programs in order to reach those non-traditional students across the United States that were not in a position to move to New Jersey and get the traditional campus experience. So at that time, 2010, 2011, and 12, we really had no institutional expertise to enter the online education space successfully. We didn't really know how to support a fully online universe properly, nor did we have the financial means to enter the space, this very competitive space successfully. So there were two options. Either we don't do it at all, or if we do it, we can only do it with the help of an online program management company. In order to bring that online program management company on board, we had to launch an RFP. So this was an 18-month process that was extremely competitive. And when we settled on our OPM company of choice, incoming President Barchi in September 2012 signed a 7-year agreement with that company. So the 7-year contract included a broad range of support services for Rutgers Online: national marketing, enrollment coaching, retention coaching, instructional design, state authorization, which was a lot more complicated back then prior to our membership in SARA, clinical placement services for the programs that needed it. It also included the learning management system, plus several add-on technologies and digital assets. So at the time, as I mentioned, we barely had any. There may have been a couple of online degree programs, but by and large, everybody that came to Rutgers Online, came to this partnership agreement, came to it fresh, without prior expertise. So it took some time. It took about a year or so for the program directors of these fully online programs to understand how to operate in the fully online space and how to interact with the OPM company. And the more familiar they became with all that, the more concerned they became about a number of issues. And those issues that were brought to my attention, they fall into 3 different buckets. The first one is lack of customizability of services. So one after the other came to me saying, hey, why do we need all these services? I just need half of them. And why are we paying for all of that when I don't need it? And can I have a little bit more of this, a little less of that? And how about that other service that we're not getting at all? The problem was, it would have been one thing for all of them to agree that these are the changes we need, but they didn't. Everybody wanted something different, depending on where they were in the process and how ambitious they were in growing their program. So that was concern number one. The OPM company, because it isn't part of the model to customize services to the local needs of the programs, declined. They, in all fairness, they tried, to go as far as they could, but it wasn't far enough for our program directors. The second problem was the tuition share agreement. There were 2 sides to that problem. Number one was the size of the tuition share that we had with the OPM company, which was 50%. That was objectionable, even though as far as OPMs go, that is on the very low end of the scale. And the second, the other side of the problem was the share agreement, the fact that Rutgers would share tuition with an outside party. Was extremely objectionable. Between those 2 things, size of share and sharing tuition, we had a terrible time growing membership of Rutgers Online across the different campuses. The third concern was the lack of transparency that is characteristic of an OPM. We got some data, yes, we did, enrollments, leads and things like that, marketing data, but our directors were mostly interested, were much more interested actually in financial aspects, meaning how much money are you spending of my tuition, and how is the money spent? What does it buy me? How is are the budgets allocated across the different marketing channels, and how is the other program doing financially? What is allocated to them? So none of those questions, of course, were answered because they are not typically part. That kind of transparency is not part of the OPM model. So this went on and on for a few years, and we tried to have conversations, try to mediate between the programs and the OPM provider to see if we can find some common ground, but we didn't. And as the years went by, it became increasingly apparent, certainly by 2017, that we needed to gear up for a very likely non-renewal of the contract, or even an extension of a year or another. There were several, programs that said to me, if you guys renew or I'm out, I need something different. So by 2017, that meant the start of contingency planning. And there were 2 important questions in the room, of course. The most obvious one, what will or who will replace the OPM come January 2020. And the second, less obvious but equally important question is what's going to happen during the final year of the OPM contract. So we asked ourselves this question. First of all, we had to operate on the assumption that during the final contract year, the OPM, our OPM, just like any other, will gradually withdraw their services from the institution. And if left unaddressed, this will likely mean a drop in enrollments, certainly the following year, 2020, but even very possibly in the fall of the final contract year. We had even more reason to believe that this would be the case because our OPM did not have what's called a tail, meaning there were absolutely no financial obligations from Rutgers to the OPM past the end of the calendar year of 2019. That is not the case in many other OPM contracts where obligations continue until the last students graduate. But in our case, that was the scenario. So we asked ourselves, if we want to prevent that from happening proactively, what is it that we need to have in place in the final contract year? And we said, okay, marketing, most importantly, has to continue full force throughout 2019. We cannot take the chance of marketing, of these programs being under-marketed. We also need enrollment coaching as the complement to marketing. And we need to make sure that our students stay in the program, even if it gets a little rocky during the final year because of some anticipated changes. So we said we needed retention coaching for that purpose as well. So right then and there, if you looked at those three things, it's very clear. We didn't need another OPM to operate in parallel with our standing OPM. We needed a company that would us provide just those three services. And so we talked to a bunch of OPM companies, big names, just to see if they would be willing to unbundle their services to give us exactly what we needed. And of course, we talked to a number of companies that were established in the market as able and successful in providing unbundled services. After all those conversations were had, our choice was Blackboard, came down to Blackboard OPX as the most suitable partner for this bridge program as we call it. So January 2019 comes around, and here we are operating with the OPM in place during the final contract year, doubled up in parallel with Blackboard OPX. It was uncomfortable, really uncomfortable at times. You can imagine, the OPM was not happy that we were, bringing in another partner, and they were certainly not happy that we weren't willing to renew with them or extend. I have to say, though, uncomfortable as it may have been, it was all parties dealt with the situation in a very professional manner. And we were able to move through the year 2019. Our enrollment stabilized, and we were able to exit from the OPM without any significant damages. We also decided strategically to offer this bridge program to all the participating academic programs, the degree programs, at no cost, because they were still liable for the the tuition share agreement with the OPM. So in 2019, the world, of course, was a very different one for us as compared to 2012 when we started with the OPM, because after 7 years of working in parallel now with an OPM and also then with Blackboard OPX, it was very clear to us that we had acquired significant skill sets to bring a lot of the services that were formerly provided by the OPM in-house. We had the staffing to do instructional design. In fact, we were doing it already. We have multimedia services, gamification, AR, VR. We had a help desk that never closes. State authorization, we were already doing ourselves as members of SARA. And we had already reinforced a couple of campus offices with specialized support staff dedicated specifically to the fully online student population. Now, that said, we were also, and we still are, fully aware that there are certain services that we still cannot provide with our own staff, but have to continue to to contract an outside partner for. Of course, again, market research and marketing, enrollment coaching, retention coaching, and of course, psychological counseling, which is, that's not just that we don't have the resources, which is true too, but there's also federal licensure restrictions when it comes to providing these types of services across state lines. So we have been contracting with a company that provides those services to students wherever they are in the world.
So we partnered with Rutgers at the very end of 2018, and it was a completely new approach, one that really provided, as Antonia's mentioned, complete control of tuition, full ownership of all assets, more insight and access to data and analytics at all of the stages, including that financial aspect, a research-driven strategy and messaging that was unique, specific not only to Rutgers Online, but also for each of the programs. And that flexibility and customization that Antonia's talked about with the services that each program would actually need. So as Antonia's mentioned, we overlapped for a full year. That included some time for implementation and getting everything up and running. But one of the things that we know is what we call the rule of 7, that it can take prospects as long as 7 times to get exposed to your ad before they even become an inquiry. And then we also know that that time from inquiry to the time of application, through application into enrollment, can be very time consuming. So we wanted to make sure that we were in market as soon as possible to really try to impact that spring 2020 start, and that we knew that we needed to overlap. So our marketing approach was based on our own research, looking at competitive insights in the market to develop the right positioning and messaging. Our focus was really on a digital only campaign, understanding that the vast majority of our prospects would be doing their research on their mobile devices, and going through the journey in that way. Digital marketing is not only the most effective way to reach the audiences, but also, the most effective way for us to be able to track and really understand, optimize those media dollars in real time so they can work as hard as possible. And we really recognize that it requires year-round media flooding, while the instinct may to market right before you have a enrollment start date. We know that prospects are looking throughout the year, and demand can be high at certain times, and they can be requesting information, but not looking to fill out an application or enroll until later. And a good mix of media channels across different types of media channels to continue to fill that funnel. So this is a sample breakdown of what that looks like. Another thing that's very important, and something that can sometimes get tangled up with an OPM, is the importance of your organic site. As you increase your investment in marketing dollars, you'll see an increase in interest and traffic to your organic site. So you want to make sure that that site is easy to find, and that traffic doesn't get lost on your site, that they are able to convert and become a lead within your funnel or get to that application, so that they can then convert to be an enrollment. So that was an added complication that we wanted to make sure that we covered off on. With our key marketing channels established, the most important element was really tracking our progress. We started off by establishing key benchmarks, goals, continually collaborating with the Rutgers Online team and making sure that we were progressing towards those. And then beyond tracking the conversion through the funnel, also tracking how prospects are behaving within the funnel. So picking up key insights on how long it takes to progress, and steps through the enrollment process, as well as like primary motivators, detractors, even competitors that are popping up for Rutgers Online. So just to recap really quickly around how we were successful, it was really a strategy based on research and data, optimizing paid and organic digital marketing channels, making sure we're monitoring that data and analytics at all stages, and keeping that feedback loop open between both the marketing and enrollment teams on our sides, as well as the program teams on the Rutgers side. And just continuing measuring success with those KPIs. Overall, we've seen an incredibly successful partnership, but I want to hand it over to Laura, who's going to talk specifically about how this partnership worked really well with one of Rutgers' flagship online degrees within the School of Social Work.
Thanks, Jessica. So a little bit about the Rutgers University School of Social Work. We are the 4th largest school of social work in the country. That's out of about 260 programs. And we host MSW degrees across all 3 main Rutgers campuses, multiple offsite locations, and then of course the 100% online cohorts. And about 20% of our enrollment annually does join the 100% online cohorts, which we offer in spring, summer, and fall. Just kind of building on the timeline that Antonia shared, we launched our first full online program in fall 2013. And as you can see, we grew from about 44 programs in the first year or 44 enrollments in the first year to 108 in the last fall 2020 semester. So quite a growth. We are ranked 17th, tied with NYU nationally in terms of MSW programs. And having that reputation, of course, the reputation of Rutgers University, it certainly affords us a good deal of interest from prospective students, but the MSW in general is an incredibly competitive marketplace. There are programs launching daily. It's just an incredibly popular program right now. In fact, we've had at least 5 programs launch in the last 5 years here in New Jersey. So it's incredibly important to us as a school to make sure that we continue to be out there and representing our programs and our story in the best way possible. So as Antonia shared previously, we began working with Blackboard in spring 2019 and in partnership with campaigns that were still running with the OPM. We were pleasantly surprised to see an initial pop in enrollments for our fall 2019 program, 100% online program. We were up about 20% from our fall 2018 enrollment. So that was very encouraging. And then as we transitioned out of that shared revenue model into the spring of 2020, our school decided to make an additional investment with Blackboard. Again, knowing this competitive landscape that is out there in terms of the MSW degree. So we looked at a few different amounts and we felt comfortable at $500,000. So we actually made that investment the spring 2020 and we made it again this spring 2021. So an investment of just under $1 million. And again, with the lack of revenue sharing model now, we were able to accrue a great deal more revenue in that. And I'll also mention, we had another pop in enrollment for fall 2020, following that initial investment of $500,000 above what Rutgers University is spending. And then we are also seeing a 70% increase in applications for this fall. So while our enrollments aren't quite in yet for fall 2021, we did see an increase in our spring 2021 enrollments. And again, we're seeing the 70% increase in applications for this fall, which is very exciting for us because it not only means that we are, certainly enjoying this added revenue for our school, but we're also seeing, we're able to be a little bit more selective with our applicants. So we're ultimately enrolling a stronger student as well.
All right, we're almost out of time, I see. So, some of this was already covered. So maybe let's just skip to the last slide. So it's interesting as we're moving forward in contemplating Rutgers Online 2.0, other than understanding what our in-house capacity is and what we still need to contract a vendor for, there are other basic questions we have to answer on the back end. One of them is Rutgers Online going to be all-inclusive, meaning everybody who has a fully online degree program is going to be opted in by default, or will it continue as an opt-in, opt-out situation? How customizable is going to be, are the services going to be? And finally, who pays for what? That has a lot to do with all-inclusivity. Because if we have to ask programs to pay their own way into the program, we will most likely not achieve an all-in solution. So these are the basic questions that we need to wrestle with beyond who is going to be our next partner in this whole situation.